Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shaman's Cave.
And I'm Renee Baribeau, and I'm excited that we're here again and bringing together compelling topics. And today we have one that we're going to talk about what does the simple life look like? And Sandra, I know you have some really, ideas on this that you've been nurturing for many, many years. So where do we start?
What stimulated this topic for us to talk about on the show was on our last show. I shared that I've been in contact with a wonderful elder up in the Santa Clara Pueblo. And we've done a bunch of work together over the years, and I haven't seen him for many years. And he kept on calling me and he kept on saying to me, "We must return to the simple life. We must return to the simple life." And that really is a lot of what I'm very interested in, what people from indigenous traditions are sharing, because in indigenous traditions, people are more connected to their line of ancestors. And their line of ancestors kept teaching over time what to do when trouble happens, what to do when turbulent times arrive, what to do when there's disharmony. So there's been this long unbroken line of elders teaching their children and their children growing up. And in our culture, when you really think about, you can find amazing jewels that our ancestors left us. My mother said some amazing things that I really hang on to during troubled times. But in a lot of ways, our ancestors, and I'm talking to people in America. Um, my ancestors ran for their lives, and so when they came here, they broke off all communication with their relatives at home in their old ways. Everything was about integrate into this new country so that you can survive, integrate, and leave all of it behind. And so we're really lacking those pearls of wisdom that ancestors have been giving us, the breadcrumbs that they've been giving us of how to get through these times because they saw that it was gonna happen. And so I've been really interested in reading because people are posting really, really beautiful statements from indigenous people from all over the world, from different traditions. And many people are saying similar things. But what we were talking about on the last show, gratitude and not feeding all the negativity, because feeding all the negativity, as one beautiful Hopi grandmother says, throws you in the hole, not the portal. Do you want to go through the portal or do you want to go through the hole? And if you're only feeding negative things and thinking about negative things, that's where you're going. And all the teachings that I'm seeing are very similar to what I teach and what I call the medicine for the earth and healing with spiritual light work of watch your words, watch your thoughts, watch your daydreams because they're manifesting the reality that we're living in right now. Change your thoughts, change the world that we live in. What we feed grows. And nature is our greatest teacher of how to get back to the simple ways because nature teaches us about the phases of planting that seed, waiting in the darkness for the conditions to be right, for the new growth, the new life to come up, and then the cycle of death. And so returning to nature and spending more time in nature is something that we're all going to have to do. We're all going to have to do. And And it shouldn't be something that you have to do. People want to do it now. They're feeling the beauty, the power. Birding is at its all-time high. um, uh, and so there is an energy moving people into the beauty of the natural world, and that is a simple practice that we all need to do because the natural world is speaking to us, and we want to build relationships so that we can have intelligent conversations with them.
Hmm. What a great reminder. Don't feed the bears. It's like just so simple. And it's really hard. I mean, there's if we kind of we're it's like somebody who's drowning. That's how I feel about humanity right now is we're drowning. And what do is we grab for all the people who are trying to save us and try to get them to drown with us because we're trying to climb up from the other drowning people so that we get the air. And I kind of want to look in my own life as where is this lifestyle drowning me? Like I'm ready to make some changes and jump more fully into all of my own teaching. And you know, and one of my dear friends said to me, "Well, you're going to have to make some lifestyle changes." And it's just like, well, I don't want to make lifestyle changes. It's like I want everything that I have right now, and I want to be in my right integrity of whatever my journey is. And I don't know. The thing is I control it. Like I don't know that the wind's going to take away absolutely everything I hold dear, but there's like this false sense of it might, you know. So last night on my wind walk, I had this question that came to me: how would my life look different if I knew with absolute certainty that the wind was filling my sail?
Mm.
And some moments I have it, but how would I act differently if I knew that in every moment? That there was no question, like that those struggle days are the wind's just holding a different sail, it's just like holding a different position. And so, for me, returning to the simple life is a little, it's a kind of a, it's one of those things that I say that I want, and then I have to look and say, well, is that what you're doing? We say that we want it, but then we have to look at, what are we throwing in the trash can? And, how far do we drive? I mean, for me, I'm feeling stranded right now that I can't get on a plane and go fly to where I want to go. Even though I don't know where it is I want to go, but, so that really simplifying is going to mean structural, physical, mental, emotional changes. And, am I willing to walk through that portal and say, yeah, I making that choice, this is what I want, and I'm going to trust that the universe has me, that the wind has me as I make this transition.
Yeah, that's really beautiful to always know that we're held. Um, for me, many years ago, I was writing my newsletter, my New Year's newsletter. And, everybody in their New Year's newsletters tries to bring out some amazing wisdom that please readers. And so I journeyed to Isis and I said, do you have a prediction that you want to make for this year? And she said, no. She said, the future is created from the present. You change the present, you change the future. And so, that's a simple way of life that I've been living every day based on what Isis said, because our ego, because we're so afraid that we're gonna suffer losses. We're so afraid we're going to suffer losses. We're always trying to look out there, what's going to get me, what's going to get me, and the bottom line is that part of life is loss, and people are experiencing a lot of loss right now. I've experienced a tremendous amount of loss in my life, and it's important. You can't sit around and this is what I found to live a simple life. I can't sit around and worry about everything else that I'm going to lose. I can't. I just have to know that I've done enough work on myself to have the spiritual tools to deal with the losses and
Mm.
to move into a place of surrender and acceptance instead of throwing tantrums with the universe. Now, I throw a lot of tantrums with but they haven't responded to one in 40 years. So go for it and try it, but it doesn't work with me. The bottom line is we all have a destiny. We all have life's lessons. And it's for our evolution. The key is work on your spiritual practices so that your spiritual practices are strong enough to carry you through the losses and also to carry you through the amazing gains that you
Mm.
made. So then your ego doesn't take control and go, oh, let's do more of this. So we're always trying to rein back the ego, and the only way you can do that is by finding spiritual practice that speak to you and doing them every single day. And that's the indigenous people, the native people are saying we have to do our spiritual practices every day.
And that really reminds me of a time that I was in Mexico and I was an all night journey, and I was so far away. That's the best way I could say it. I was so far. I don't know where I was looking for information that night, but it was that I knew the rattle. I knew the rattle would take me home. I knew that if I stayed with the rattle, I wouldn't get lost. And I stayed with the rattle until I could reassemble the world that I had just dismantled in order to come back to, this world of form that I, live in. And that reminds me, and I forget that, Sandra. That's such a great reminder. Like, even now, like, I've been struggling, work has been crazy demanding, and, life has been totally demanding and shut down and all of that. And all of a sudden, somebody came in with these Diksha meditations. And, it's not necessarily the path that I'm going to follow, but I know enough that I need to get my butt in that seat. She's doing them like twice a week. And I'm there, and I'm like, power junkie in the Diksha because I called one of my spiritual teachers. This is the hardest experience that I've ever had to hold as a shamanic teacher, as a leader. I and I have to remind myself we were prepared for this, but I think that no one told me it was going to look like this, but this has been the hardest time period to ever hold since I remember. And
Mm.
I don't know if that's been for you too, Sandra, but for me, it's been like, it's like an energy every single day that as doulas of energy, we have some, we're all connected, and there's some of us who are holding a little bit more of it than others, I think, at this moment.
Well, I think when you look at the universe's plans, I'm not going to use the word perfect, but the universe gave me a lesson 5 years ago that uh, took me down way below where I would be right now if I didn't have this experience. And so I've had 5 years of practice every day, 365 days a week, 65 days a year, because the universe has not given me a break on this. So I've had to practice every day of how do you get through something like we're going through. And so when I taught this class recently on spiritual immunity for 2,000 people, I found that I had already been through everything that
Mm,
I was teaching. And I had this experience to say, this doesn't work in the dark night of the soul. This doesn't work. This works. And so I feel that I have a lot of practice. And I actually wish I didn't, but I've been able to hold the space right now because I've had 5 years of practice.
mm.
And so there are people out there who are teachers, who are leaders in their community, who have been going through really hard times. How did you get through these hard times? And now, how do you help your community with them?
What a beautiful thought, that because sometimes I feel so lucky that I get to share all of this time together with that we've really it's like a really supportive thing, and it's one time you get these ideas about that we're not in this alone. We are in this together. And so in simplifying, some of the things that we've suggested, Sandra, that you do your practices every day, that you remember that spirit has your sail. The wind has your sail all the time, whether it looks like it or not. And that you've been through a hard time at some point in your life, whether it's been, that you're prepared. I think that's what I told somebody who reached out last night when they were really all depressed about what was going on. I said, listen, this is what we've been preparing for. We're ready. We just sometimes need to hear it from out somebody else's mouth to remember, oh yeah, yesterday I knew that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, it's hard. It's really hard, and I think that I think people really do need to take time to drop into how they're feeling. And people are doing a lot of Zoom meetings with friends, to break through some of the isolation. And just so everybody knows, on one of my websites, shamanicteachers.com, we're listing teachers who are doing online journey groups, and they're open to everyone. We have one of my teachers is doing them on live Facebook, and she's getting 300 to 1,000 people in a group. I have teachers just putting out on my website their group and when it meets, and my teachers are telling me people are joining from all over the world.
Mm.
So these are free events, and it's a real way to get that spiritual support that you need right now, because we are in scary times. As I shared, I'm definitely going through a lot, but what I do is my spiritual practices are the reframe for every fear thought that comes up, and it works and it keeps me sane. And I hope that you will find a practice that does the same for you.
And on our next show, we're going to do a solstice ceremony. So that will also be a group thing that you can be a part of. And also for me, I'm doing an all-day solstice event on the 20th where we're actually going to break out into small groups so that people can feel heard and get their voices shared and actually work on things that are up for you right now. It's going to be a wind knot deepening ceremony. So we're going to actually look at your mind, body, physical, and the rope is going to be your true north or your magnetic north guiding, so that when you release these knots, you can work with each of those areas that we're going to do a more in-depth process with the whole day. So we're very excited about that. Well, Sandra and I are both really committed to giving people the tools that they need, not because not because we have to walk through these days. There's no, like, we're here. We
Right.
crossed the threshold. We are here now, folks. There's no going back to that nice time that before there was a global pandemic that we. it's over.
Yeah.
So how are we going to show up now? And trust me, for those of you who've been working 25 years, or if you just started a couple years ago, we've been laying the groundwork here for 25, 30, 40 years for this doorway, this threshold. And so know that you're ready, you have the tools, and take one thing out of your life this week that could give you more simplicity. What would that look like?
That's beautiful suggestion, Renee. It's perfect because what I find is that where people get so overwhelmed with anything, any project, but we're definitely looking at overwhelm with the environment. Whenever you're looking at a project, if you get too big, there's no way to go from point A to point B, and then you just end up being paralyzed. So, as Renee said, what's one tiny step? What's one thing you don't put a vegetable in one plastic bag this week? That starts to open up the door to then you realize that you could go on the street and pick up a little bit of garbage and clean the street. And every day another little idea will come. And as everybody does that, we start seeing change. So, so thank you everybody for everything that you're doing. And Renee and I was a lifeguard when I was at some point, and we were trained. You cannot save somebody who's drowning, and we can't, and you can't. But we can help you stand in your strength, and we can help you make sure you don't go down and ride the wave with us. Ride the wave with us. Stay with us. We're going to be riding the wave, and we'll be sharing tools and everything that we've learned in our experience of how to get through these times. We're elders, and we do have a lot to share. So stay with us and visit the Shamans Cave and visit Shamans TV and tell people about this show. We're holding space for whatever comes our way on the planet. We will be holding space, and you have a safe place to come. So, blessings, everyone.
Thank you very much, Sandra. There's nothing to say after that. See everyone next week.